67,000 chips.
She's got more than a tattoo line. She'll tattoo you at the table. She can play.
Erased from poker and hated by the community. But this wasn't just a fall from grace, it was a systematic self-destruction. She won a $2 million televised event, ran her own poker league, and built a career off lectures about ethics and decision-making. Yet if you ask the players, the fans, or even the dealers, they'll tell you the same thing. She ruined poker. With greed, with manipulation, and with a string of betrayals so deep, even Daniel Negranu couldn't stay silent. So how did poker's so-called queen of strategy become its most forgotten disgrace? Annie Duke didn't grind her way through underground games. She didn't survive on scraps in Vegas card rooms. She was born into poker royalty, sister to Howard Lederer, a man who already had power, money, and influence in the game. Before she played a hand at the World Series of Poker, she had a bankroll, a coach, and a direct line to insider strategy most pros would have killed for. Her debut came in 1994, and for a while, she earned her stripes. She wasn't the best in the room, but she held her own. In a game dominated by men, Duke was smart, articulate, and media-friendly. That was her real edge. She wasn't there to outplay people. She was there to outposition them, and she did. When she won the 2004 WSOP Tournament of Champions, a made-for-TV event with a $2 million prize, everything changed. That wasn't just a title, that was branding gold. She wasn't just Annie Duke anymore. She was the face of female poker. Suddenly, she was writing books, giving interviews, explaining poker strategy on TV. Networks loved her, conference stages booked her, and the poker world at first played along. But behind the accolades, something fell off. She didn't dominate cash games, she didn't put in the hours, and yet somehow, she was everywhere. Because Annie wasn't selling poker, she was selling herself. She branded herself as a strategist, a decision-making expert, a rational thinker in a sea of gamblers. But when you look closer, there was no long resume of high-stakes wins, just one televised victory and a growing ability to be in the right place when the cameras were rolling. Poker players noticed. And over time, so did the fans. She wasn't building the game, she was using it. In 2008, online poker was rocked by one of the biggest cheating scandals in its history. A program nicknamed God Mode allowed insiders to see their opponents' hole cards in real time. Millions were stolen, reputations destroyed, and trust in the entire online poker world took a hit that would last for years. At the center of it all, UltimateBet, the site Annie Duke had proudly represented for years. She wasn't just a passive ambassador, she was one of the faces of the brand, spokesperson, professor public advocate. Her name was on the ads, her face was on the banners. She pushed the platform hard, convincing players it was safe, reputable, and honest. But when the scandal broke, she didn't say a word. No apology, no explanation, no public defense of the players who'd been cheated. While Russ Hamilton was confirmed as the mastermind and others were forced to address the fallout, Annie vanished. The woman who once marketed herself as poker's ethical compass had nothing to say. And that silence, it spoke louder than guilt. Poker players don't forget. They don't forget when someone profits from their trust and disappears the moment things get ugly. Duke had cashed in on UltimateBet's rise, but when the tables turned, she left everyone else holding the bag. It wasn't just about the scandal itself. It was the way she distanced herself the moment accountability was required. She'd taken the money, taken the spotlight, but when the victims came looking for answers, Duke had already exited stage left. And for the poker world, that was unforgivable. If UltimateBet was the scandal Annie Duke couldn't control, the Epic Poker League was the one she created from scratch. In 2011, Duke pitched a dream, a high-stakes, invite-only poker league built on ethics, exclusivity, and integrity. No amateurs, no dead money, just the best players in the world competing under a strict code of conduct. She wasn't just the face of the league, she was its commissioner, co-founder, and its loudest voice. She banned disgraced full-tilt execs like Chris Ferguson and Howard Lederer, her own brother, just to prove how serious she was about transparency. She promised a $1 million free roll at the end of the season. She said this was poker's version of the NFL, and people believed her. The first 3 events ran, players showed up, prize money was paid. But what they didn't see, the league was already broke. Sponsorships had collapsed, TV ratings flopped, the money just wasn't there. When the 4th event was supposed to happen, it didn't. The free roll never happened. Instead, the Epic Poker League filed for bankruptcy, owing over $8 million. And somehow, in the middle of that financial wreckage, Annie Duke got paid. Players were left empty-handed, promises were broken, and Duke walked away, paycheck in hand. This wasn't just another bad poker business, it was a betrayal. She had positioned herself as the moral compass of the league. But when it sank, she cashed out first. That's when something changed. Annie Duke wasn't just disliked anymore, she was despised. At first, Daniel Negranu respected Annie Duke. Back in the late 90s, he even listed her among the top 10 limit hold'em players in the world. But that respect didn't last. It curdled into something bitter, something venomous. Their first meeting set the tone. She mocked him, publicly, for sipping from a styrofoam cup, called him cup boy in front of others. He never forgot it. That moment, small as it seemed, planted the seed for one of poker's most toxic rivalries. Over time, the tension grew louder. In 2002, Daniel posted an anonymous takedown of a female pro's behavior on an online forum. Everyone knew who it was. Howard Lederer, Annie's brother, confirmed it was her, and then came the explosion. Howard accused Daniel of a smear campaign. Daniel fired back with brutal honesty. He accused Annie of elitism, manipulation, and arrogance. He said what others were too polite to say, that she used poker as a platform for personal gain. Then came the 7 sins. A blog post where Daniel listed example after example of Annie's alleged unethical behavior, peeking at folded cards, changing deals after realizing the math didn't suit her, hygiene complaints. It wasn't about strategy, it was about conduct, about ethics. But the feud wasn't just personal, it became public policy. When Annie criticized the WSOP ladies event as unnecessary and outdated, Daniel defended it fiercely. What should have been a civil debate about inclusivity turned into another battleground. Daniel called her a hypocrite, someone who used the title of best female player when it benefited her, then tore down women's only spaces when it didn't. And then, the final blow. In a European poker interview, Daniel dropped the nuclear option. He referred to Annie using one of the most offensive acronyms in the English language, backed up with an F-bomb. Even players who disliked her thought he crossed the line. Annie fired back with an open letter to PokerStars, demanding accountability. Daniel claimed it was off the record, but no one was buying it. The poker world didn't see a feud anymore, they saw war. 2 figures locked in mutual destruction, one accused of manipulation, the other of obsession, but in the end, only one of them stayed in poker. Annie Duke didn't vanish because she lost a step at the tables. She vanished because the poker world stopped acknowledging her. After the collapse of the Epic Poker League and years of dodging accountability for UltimateBet, Annie didn't offer a statement, a public apology, or even a simple acknowledgement of what went wrong. Instead, she rebranded. She resurfaced as a decision-making expert, writing books, giving TED Talks, and consulting Fortune 500 companies on how to make better choices. The same woman who helped run a poker league into $8 million of unpaid debt. Now lectured executives about ethics, logic, and strategic thinking, and somehow it worked. In business circles, she was seen as a thought leader, but in poker circles, she was a punchline. Vegas dealers reportedly nicknamed her Annie Puke. Players refused to acknowledge her contributions, and Daniel Negranu, years later, still made time to torch her name in interviews and blog posts. What angered the community wasn't just the pivot, it was the way she tried to erase everything that came before. No redemption arc, no attempt to fix the damage, just a clean escape into a world where nobody asked about unpaid prize pools or super user accounts. In poker, legacy matters, your word at the table, the respect you earn, not through branding, but through consistency. And when Annie tried to skip the consequences and rewrite the narrative, the community wrote her out instead. She didn't just fall out of favor, she became irrelevant. No mentions on broadcasts, no commentary on streams, not even a passing reference during retrospectives about the game's past. She wasn't a villain with staying power, like Mike Posel or Russ Hamilton. She was a ghost. And in poker, that's the worst punishment of all. Annie Duke didn't ruin poker with one scandal. She ruined it with consistency, with the steady erosion of trust year after year. One UltimateBet endorsement, one unpaid free roll, one silence too many. And while she gives speeches about smart decision making, the poker world made a smart decision of its own. They cut her out of the story. In our next video, Matuso blows the lid off what really happens behind the scenes in high stakes poker. From rigged games to backroom deals, he names names, exposes power players, and reveals the side of poker they never show on TV. Click here to find out who he calls out and why some of poker's biggest stars are terrified of what he has to say.